Remember when mornings felt a little slower? Before the first thing you looked at when you opened your eyes was a phone, and you enjoyed the little things in life. Well, I will transport you to the morning routines that shaped our lives but were forgotten with time. There was a time when your alarm clock had feathers and a loud beak. Before the buzz of a digital alarm, the rooster's crow was nature's wake-up call, signaling the start of a new day. There wasn't snooze button, and you certainly couldn't ignore it. The rooster, ever punctual, operated on sunrise, not your sleep schedule. For farming families, this natural rhythm was essential. The rooster's crow meant it was time to milk the cows, collect eggs, and prepare for a full day's work. The sound of roosters echoed across the neighborhood, connecting everyone to the same morning rhythm. It brought a sense of shared experience, whether you were up feeding livestock or just trying to stay asleep a little longer. There's a certain health benefit to waking with the sun. Natural light helps regulate the body's circadian rhythm, something modern alarms can't quite replicate. And let's not forget the sensory charm, the dewy air, the golden sunlight filtering through the trees, and yes, even the distinct and sometimes overpowering smell of the barn. Of course, the rooster's reliability came with quirks. If one got confused, crowing at midnight wasn't out of the question. That's one feature digital alarms wisely skipped. Long before blackout curtains and motorized blinds turned mornings into perpetual midnight, the day began with a simple gesture, opening the curtains. For families, this small act signaled the start of daily life. It wasn't uncommon to hear a parent say, "Rise and shine," as the sunlight poured in, whether you were ready for it or not. Practicality was key. Natural light was the original energy saver, cutting down on the need for lamps or candles. In homes where electricity was a luxury or the budget was tight, the sun provided free illumination. Plus, a well-lit room made morning chores, from tidying up to reading the newspaper, much easier. There's also something undeniably healthy about sunlight first thing in the morning. Exposure to natural light helps reset your circadian rhythm, boosting your mood and even helping regulate your sleep cycle. Of course, in those days, people didn't call it circadian rhythm. They just knew that waking up with the sun felt right. The warmth of sunlight streaming through the window, the gentle rustle of curtains, and the sights of a neighborhood waking up. A far cry from tapping the snooze button and pulling the covers back over your head. In the days before rushing out the door with a coffee in hand, mornings began with chores that couldn't wait. Whether it was feeding the chickens, milking the cows, or gathering fresh eggs, these tasks were a vital part of daily life. It's hard to complain about early mornings when the eggs you're frying are still warm from the nest. For many families, these chores weren't optional but a matter of survival. On a farm, every pair of hands mattered, and children often pitched in before heading to school. It was a practical necessity. Livestock needed care, and the day's work couldn't start without it. These shared tasks created a bond, a sense of teamwork that modern life often lacks. Health-wise, there's no denying the benefits of starting the day with physical activity. Whether hauling buckets or scattering feed, these chores got your blood flowing, and the sensory experience was unmatched. The cool morning air, the sound of cows mooing in the barn, the feel of hay underfoot, it was a symphony of rural life. Of course, waking up to milk a cow might not be glamorous, but at least cows don't hit snooze. Back when indoor plumbing wasn't a guarantee and hot water wasn't at your fingertips, splashing cold water on your face was the ultimate wake-up call. This brisk ritual was a necessity. Before water heaters became household staples, heating water meant lighting a stove or boiling a pot, so cold water was the default choice. The sensation was shocking, to say the least, but effective. That first icy splash jolted you into full alertness, no coffee required. It also had health benefits, even if no one called it rejuvenating at the time. Cold water stimulates circulation and reduces puffiness, giving your skin a healthy glow, a fact your grandmother might have known without ever needing a beauty influencer. This daily routine wasn't always a solitary experience either. In larger households, siblings often shared a single basin, making the act of washing up a communal, if occasionally chaotic, event. And for families drawing water from a pump or well, There was a shared effort just to bring that cold splash into the home. From a sensory standpoint, nothing compared to the crisp chill of water straight from the source. Before brightly packaged tubes of minty toothpaste filled store shelves, oral care was a little more resourceful. Baking soda, that humble kitchen staple, was the go-to for brushing teeth. It wasn't glamorous, but it worked. With its natural abrasive properties, baking soda effectively scrubbed away plaque and stains. Plus, it helped neutralize odors, a lifesaver in an era without breath mints or whitening strips. Toothpaste, as we know it, didn't gain popularity until the mid-20th century. For families on tight budgets, baking soda was a cheap and readily available alternative. One box could last ages, and in those days, stretching a household item was practically a sport. Time and effort were minimal, but the sensory experience was memorable, to say the least. The gritty texture and salty taste weren't exactly pleasant, but they got the job done. And for those who wanted to fancy it up, a drop of peppermint oil or a sprinkle of salt added a hint of sophistication, or so they told themselves. In larger families, sharing a tin of baking soda brought its own sense of connection. It was a reminder that caring for yourself didn't need to be complicated. These days, we have endless toothpaste options, but let's admit it, none of them double as a fridge deodorizer. In the days before wrinkle-free fabrics and dry cleaners on every corner, crisp, well-ironed clothes were a mark of respect and preparation. For many mothers, ironing was part of the daily routine that set the tone for the whole family. Shirts, slacks, skirts, and uniforms had to be fresh and crisp for school or work, and it was Mom who made sure everyone looked sharp. Ironing required time, patience, and a certain level of skill. You couldn't just toss everything in a dryer and hope for the best. The iron had to be at the right temperature, the steam needed to be just right, and that faint smell of starch wafting through the house was a sign you were ready for the day ahead. And when the iron hit those stubborn creases, it was like magic. Beyond the practicality, ironing was a moment of family connection. It wasn't uncommon for moms to sit with their children, chatting as they pressed clothes for the day. Sometimes the hum of the iron was the soundtrack to early morning conversations, or a chance to teach valuable life skills. On the health side, a well-ironed shirt often meant better posture too, because when you look good, you stand tall. The warmth of the iron, the sound of steam hissing, and that unmistakable scent of fresh linen, simple pleasures we didn't fully appreciate at the time. Before breakfast became something you could eat in your car, mornings used to revolve around the family table. A hearty homemade breakfast was the foundation for the day. Whether it was fresh eggs from the backyard chickens, hearty oatmeal simmered on the stove, or thick toast with a smear of butter, these meals took time and effort, but they paid off in more ways than one. For many, breakfast was about starting the day with care. Preparing food from scratch was an act of love, and gathering around the table was a moment for family connection. Kids helped set the table or butter toast while parents cooked, turning the morning into a shared experience. It wasn't rushed or done on the go, but savored and discussed. Fresh eggs, oats, and whole grains gave you lasting energy, unlike those sugary cereal bars that barely make it past 9 a.m. Plus, these foods provided nutrients that set the stage for the day ahead. The smell of eggs cooking, the warmth of a pot of oatmeal, the sound of butter sizzling on a hot skillet. It was a true morning ritual. Sure, you might have to wash a few dishes afterward, but the effort was worth the reward. In a time when dry cleaning wasn't as accessible and washing clothes too frequently could wear them out, the clothes brush was an everyday essential. A quick brush over a coat or slacks could keep them looking sharp without the need for constant laundering. This simple tool, often passed down from one generation to the next, helped maintain the quality and longevity of clothing, and in turn, saved both time and money. Using a clothes brush required a bit of effort. The task wasn't glamorous, but it kept clothes looking neat, especially in the days when a pressed coat or well-maintained trousers were considered a sign of respectability. A few strokes with a clothes brush could remove dust, lint, and light dirt, preserving the fabric's appearance without the wear and tear of frequent washing. For families, the routine often became a shared task. It wasn't unusual for a parent to show their child how to care for their clothes properly, teaching the value of maintaining your belongings. This small ritual was about more than just cleanliness. It was a lesson in responsibility. Before blow dryers became a household staple, women had a different way of achieving the perfect hairstyle. Curlers, those cylindrical hair rollers that could double as a weapon in the wrong hands, were the go-to method for adding volume and shape. The morning routine involved wrapping wet hair around curlers, which were left in for hours, sometimes overnight. Patience was key, and hair didn't get styled in the 15-minute sprint we often wish for today. This process was far more than a solo endeavor, though. In many households, it became a communal event. Mothers, daughters, and even sisters would help each other roll their hair, chatting away as they went. A beauty routine turned into family connection, a shared moment of care and tradition. Health and wellness also played a role. Unlike the harsh heat of modern-day styling tools, curlers offered a gentler way to set hair, minimizing damage from excessive blow-drying or straightening. Of course, there was always the danger of getting tangled up in those curlers if you moved too quickly. Nothing says good morning, quite like accidentally yanking your hair out. And while the physical act of rolling hair wasn't exactly thrilling, the sensory experience of sitting with curlers in, perhaps sipping coffee and waiting for the magic to happen, was a daily ritual for many. Before scrolling through news feeds or checking social media first thing in the morning, there was a more tactile way to stay informed: the newspaper. For many, the ritual began with a hot cup of coffee in hand and the rustle of newsprint filling the room. It was an opportunity to connect with the world, your community, and sometimes your family. The practical necessity of staying informed hasn't changed, but the effort involved in reading the morning paper created a different pace to the day. No notifications pinging at you, just the calm act of turning pages, sipping coffee, and perhaps debating the day's issues with family members. It was a shared experience that often led to conversation around the breakfast table, where everyone had their section to read, whether it was sports, politics, or the funnies. There was also something about the sensory experience of that time. The smell of fresh ink, the smooth texture of paper in your hands, and the slight creak of pages as they turned. It was a moment of calm before the rush of the day. For many families, the morning began not with an alarm clock or a rush to get out the door, but with a quiet moment of prayer or devotion. Before the demands of the day took over, a few minutes of reflection or spiritual connection provided a grounding start. It was a practical necessity for many who wanted to set their intentions, find peace, and gain a sense of purpose before diving into their responsibilities. This wasn't always a solitary practice either. Families often gathered together for a short devotional, reinforcing their sense of community and shared values. It was a way to bond, even in the busiest of households. Children would sit with their parents, learning the importance of faith, gratitude, and mindfulness. For those who weren't religious, a similar quiet time for reflection or setting goals had a similar calming effect. Health and wellness weren't always discussed as we think of them today, but these moments of stillness contributed to mental clarity and emotional stability. Taking time to center yourself in the morning provided lasting benefits throughout the day, from better focus to a calmer mindset. Long before podcasts and streaming services, mornings often began with the comforting hum of a radio. As you ate your breakfast, the radio served as a connection to the outside world, catching the latest news, weather reports, or even listening to popular morning shows. For many, the radio was a necessity. Before smartphones or instant news updates, you had to tune in to hear what was happening in the world, from the weather forecast to the latest traffic reports. It helped people plan their day and stay informed with just a few minutes of listening. On a more personal level, it was also about connection. The radio hosts became familiar voices, almost like old friends. Their banter, interviews, and quirky segments brought a sense of shared experience to listeners, whether you were sitting at the breakfast table alone or with your family. While it didn't involve too much effort, the sensory experience was still there. The crackle of the radio, the warmth of the room, the clinking of silverware, all intertwined to create the feeling that the day had officially begun. In a world without constant screens, radio gave people a simple yet fulfilling way to start the morning with a little information, a little entertainment, and a sense of togetherness. Before memory foam and adjustable bases, there was the weekly chore of turning the mattress, a task that many remember fondly as part of their household routine. While it may seem like a small thing now, flipping the mattress helped keep it fresh and extend its lifespan. It was a practical necessity that made a big difference in sleep quality. A mattress that wasn't turned regularly could develop uneven wear, making for a lumpy and uncomfortable night's sleep. In many households, turning the mattress was a family affair. Two people working together could easily tackle the heavy lifting, flipping and rotating the mattress with a bit of teamwork. It was a moment of connection, an act that symbolized shared responsibility and care for the home. There was a health benefit, too. Flipping the mattress regularly helped distribute the weight more evenly, promoting better sleep and reducing pressure points. This was especially important for older mattresses, which could sag without regular rotation. The slight scent of fresh sheets, the cool, crisp feel of the mattress when it was newly rotated, this ritual not only helped your health but made your bed feel like a whole new experience. Shoe polishing was a morning ritual for many families, especially for those with leather shoes that needed a little TLC before heading out the door. It was an act of pride, making sure your shoes looked their best before school or work. Back in the day, leather shoes weren't as disposable as they are now. A good pair of shoes could last for years if properly cared for, and polishing was a critical part of that maintenance. For many households, polishing shoes was a shared activity. Dads might pass down the art of the perfect shine to their kids, teaching them how to apply polish and buff shoes to a mirror finish. This chore, like so many others, became an opportunity for connection, a time to chat while working together toward a common goal. The sensory experience of shoe polishing was something to remember. The distinct smell of polish, the sound of buffing cloths against leather, and the satisfying gleam of the shoes once they were done. It wasn't fast, but it was worth the time and effort. It was a little like a secret weapon. Nothing says, "I've got it together," like a pair of perfectly polished shoes ready to take on the day. A quick shine could elevate your look and your confidence, all before breakfast. Before the rise of drip coffee makers and single-serve pods, mornings revolved around the stovetop percolator. This was the method of choice for many, where a slow brew on the stove filled the kitchen with the rich aroma of fresh coffee. It wasn't the quick fix we're used to today, but the process itself was an experience. For those who had the patience, there was a certain satisfaction in watching the water bubble up and drip through the grounds, a little like a ritual to prepare you for the day ahead. The percolator was practical too. It was sturdy, reliable, and could brew a whole pot at once, perfect for families or anyone who needed a caffeine fix to jumpstart their day. There was something almost meditative about the process, a bit like making your morning coffee an event instead of just a chore. This method was an opportunity for family connection. Gathering around the kitchen as the percolator worked its magic was often part of a larger routine. Whether you were talking about plans for the day or catching up on life, that cup of coffee became more than just a drink. It was a moment of connection shared by everyone in the house. Before robotic vacuums and high-tech floor care, sweeping the kitchen floor was one of the first tasks of the day. It wasn't glamorous, but it was a necessary part of keeping the house tidy and functional. You could count on finding crumbs from breakfast or the dust that had settled overnight. It was a job that required some elbow grease and a steady hand with that broom. For many, it was a grounding way to start the day, something to check off the list before moving on to the rest of the morning's activities. The practical side of sweeping is obvious. Without the convenience of cordless vacuums or automatic cleaners, it was simply the best way to clear up the mess. But beyond the chore itself, it also tied families together. Everyone had their assigned task, and sweeping the kitchen floor might be the perfect excuse to chat or even share a laugh over a spilled pile of cereal. That daily routine was often a unifying activity, a subtle way of keeping the house running smoothly. Of course, the sensory experience was part of it too. The feel of the broom's bristles against the floor, the sound of sweeping, and the satisfaction of seeing a clean kitchen. Even if it wasn't the most exciting way to start the morning, it was a step toward a healthier home, physically and emotionally. In the days before rushed mornings and disposable plates, setting the table for breakfast was a daily ritual that spanned the week. It was part of the daily routine. Even on the busiest of weekdays, placing matching plates, utensils, and napkins on the table was a way to bring a sense of order to the start of the day. A complete breakfast setting was a way to signal that the day ahead mattered. It might not have taken long, but the effort made the meal feel intentional, even if it was just oatmeal and toast. This tradition was also about family connection. It didn't matter if you were running late for work or school. Everyone gathered around the table, and often that was the only time to talk as a family. With phones left in other rooms, because they were still tethered to the wall back then, conversation at the breakfast table was where you got your first updates for the day. The sensory aspect of a well-set table shouldn't be overlooked. There's something calming about the sight of clean dishes and the sound of silverware clinking together. It also set the tone for the meal, making it feel more nutritious and more satisfying. Packing a brown bag lunch was a ritual that kept families running smoothly. Every morning, parents would fill sandwich bags, tuck in snacks, and make sure there was a thermos of something warm or cold. It wasn't always gourmet, but it was the kind of thoughtful routine that ensured you had something to eat without the hassle of dining out. A peanut butter and jelly sandwich or leftovers from last night's dinner might have been the most popular choices, but the effort put into making sure lunch was ready for the day ahead was what made it special. Kids often pitched in, helping wrap up sandwiches or choose their favorite fruit, and it became part of the family connection. You might not have realized it, but those moments spent together in the kitchen were key to building teamwork, and perhaps a few creative interpretations of lunch options. And while today's convenience foods have made it easier to grab lunch on the go, there's something nostalgic about packing that brown bag, a small act of care that brought comfort and connection for a whole generation. Before gyms were on every corner and fitness apps weren't in our pockets, many started their day with a simple routine, a gentle stretch or a jog outdoors. Whether it was a brisk walk around the block or a few minutes of stretching in the yard, this was the original morning workout. People didn't need fancy equipment or memberships to stay fit. Fresh air and a little movement were all it took to kickstart the day. Getting the blood flowing first thing in the morning helped shake off the grogginess, and for those with busy schedules, it was the most time-efficient way to stay healthy. Plus, the added benefit of community connection came from seeing neighbors out in the early hours, joining in on the same stretch or jog, exchanging a wave or a quick chat, or even running together. The health benefits of morning exercise were well known long before the era of fitness influencers. Stretching improved flexibility and reduced the risk of injury, while a morning jog did wonders for the heart and lungs. The fresh air, the sound of birds chirping, and the cool morning breeze. It was about setting a peaceful tone for the day ahead, all while being connected to nature and your community. In an era before everyone had access to endless showers and multiple bathroom stalls, many turned to a washcloth to freshen up quickly in the morning. The process was simple and effective. A quick dip in the sink or basin, followed by a few well-placed swipes across the body to start the day feeling clean. This practical approach to bathing was a necessity for those who needed to make the most of their busy mornings. Families with 1 or 2 bathrooms made this a daily routine, and for many, it was a way to stretch out water usage for the rest of the day. It saved time and energy, perfect for those who had to be out the door fast, yet still wanted to feel fresh. Using a washcloth also had health benefits. The gentle exfoliation helped to refresh the skin and stimulate blood flow without over-drying it, unlike harsher scrubbing methods. The sensory experience was simple but soothing, from the warm water to the comforting scent of soap. For families, it was a daily rhythm that brought moments of connection, as kids might share towels or help a sibling out. It was an essential part of many mornings, practical, efficient, and even comforting. In the early mornings, before the rush of the day began, many people sat down with knitting needles or sewing needles in hand. These quiet hobbies were practical necessities. Whether it was a sweater, a pair of socks, or mending a torn shirt, these activities served a functional purpose, saving money and time. But beyond the practical benefits, these hobbies also provided a sense of calm before the chaos of the day. The repetitive motions of knitting or the steady rhythm of a sewing machine were almost meditative. It was a time for focus, a moment to connect with one's thoughts, and sometimes with family. Grandparents passed down patterns and techniques to the younger generations, while siblings or parents shared the work, making blankets or repairing clothes together. In terms of health, there was something therapeutic about these hobbies. The act of concentrating on a project while feeling the soft texture of yarn or fabric helped reduce stress and anxiety. The sensory experience of warm wool or smooth cotton, the rhythmic hum of the sewing machine, even the smell of fabric fresh from the store, all these little details added to the charm of starting your day with a homemade touch. On a chilly morning, the ritual of cleaning the ashes from the fireplace was necessary for preparing for the warmth and comfort of the next fire. The task itself, while necessary, held a sense of nostalgia for many who grew up in homes where the fireplace was central to heating the house. Cleaning out the ashes meant sweeping away the remnants of last night's fire, making room for the crackling warmth to fill the room once again. It took time and effort to ensure that the ashes were cleared thoroughly, the fireplace was prepped, and the kindling was set just right. For some, it was a family job, each member contributing to the ritual of getting the fire started, bringing people together even on the coldest mornings. The act of sitting by a crackling fire was an experience that connected people in ways modern heating systems can't replicate. The smell of burning wood, the sound of the crackle, and the visual of the dancing flames created a sensory experience that felt both comforting and grounding. Cleaning out the ashes also had a health benefit. Keeping the fireplace clean helped maintain proper airflow, ensuring the fire burned efficiently and safely. In a way, the task was as much about taking care of your home as it was about preparing for a new day ahead. Before the rise of pre-made mixes and automated machines, mornings often started with the humble ritual of rolling out dough by hand. Whether it was for biscuits, pancakes, or a loaf of fresh bread, the process required patience, skill, and a little muscle. You didn't just throw ingredients together and call it a day. It was a labor of love that involved measuring, mixing, and then rolling out dough to perfection. It was the only way to ensure a hot meal before starting the day. Plus, it was an economical way to feed a group, as the ingredients were simple and affordable. The time and effort spent rolling dough connected families in a way that fast food never could. While the flour dusted the countertops, there was often laughter, stories, and plenty of memories made in the process. The sensory experience was like no other. The warm aroma of rising dough, the soft texture of flour between fingers, and the satisfying sound of dough being kneaded. And the results was a fresh, comforting meal that set the tone for the day ahead. Beyond the practicality and effort, there was a real health benefit. Homemade biscuits or bread contained fewer preservatives, offering a healthier start compared to store-bought versions. Before the coffee was even brewed, many mornings began with a stroll through the garden. For families, it was an essential part of meal preparation, ensuring that breakfast or lunch had fresh, nutritious ingredients straight from the soil to the table. The time and effort spent tending to the garden fostered a deep connection between family members, too. Parents taught children how to plant, water, and harvest, passing down lessons not just about growing food, but about patience, care, and the cycle of life. Gardens were where stories were shared and work was done together. It was family bonding in its most organic form. Of course, there was something calming about the experience. The earthy scent of soil, the vibrant hues of morning sunlight reflecting off dewdrops, the feeling of cool grass beneath bare feet. Homegrown produce is rich in vitamins and antioxidants. No pesticides, just pure, wholesome nourishment. Gardens fed communities, creating bonds with neighbors and a greater appreciation for nature's cycles. Before the rush of modern life took over, many started their days with a quiet ritual, writing in a diary or journal. It was a way to slow down, reflect, and collect thoughts before diving into the busyness of the day. Journaling took time and effort, but it was worth it. The steady rhythm of pen on paper was meditative, helping clear the mind. In a world full of distractions, taking a few minutes each morning to write provided a grounding, a return to the present. It didn't matter if it was a few sentences or a few pages. The act itself had its benefits. Many studies suggest journaling helps reduce stress, boost mental clarity, and even improve sleep. There's something comforting about the process, the tactile experience of opening a notebook, the familiar scent of ink, and the feel of a favorite pen in hand. It's a sensory experience that connects the past with the present, and for families, it often becomes a tradition passed down through generations. Diaries were a window into the lives of those who came before us. While we're on the topic of eggs, let's not forget to mention the omelet with herbs and cheese. The wealthy really couldn't just have plain eggs, could they? Everything had to be herby, with special creams and cheeses. Wow, how rich! I can just imagine the housewives making this for their hungry husbands with a big smile on their faces as she sprinkles the herbs and adds the cheese to the meal, which is no longer a regular meal, but a sophisticated experience. Parsley, chives, or basil weren't just random herbs. They were the herbs, the ones that were irreplaceable, and without whom the eggs would just be eggs. On top of that, the richer the cheese, the higher the status. It didn't matter whether it was Gruyere, cheddar, or brie. If it was melting on top, no one asked questions. So, you're all no stranger to the concept of heat being really good at sterilizing things. That goes for pretty much every kind of food you've ever had, but it also goes for your bottles too. Why? Well, heat actually kills a lot more things than you might know. It kills pretty much any kind of bacteria, virus, and fungi. And while I'm not trying to imply you wouldn't know that, what I do think is that people, myself included, aren't aware of just how many bacteria there are on surfaces around us. Actually, the number is staggering. They all die of around 212 degrees Fahrenheit though, and that's the temperature of boiling water. This helps to completely obliterate most of these organisms on a cellular level, which is pretty metal if you ask me. The high temperature literally breaks them down into nothing, and they either become inactive because structurally they either just can't work anymore or they are outright killed. Pretty neat, right? Not only do you end up getting your water bottles sterilized, but they end up becoming as clean as they can be too. Creamed eggs on toast involves gently chopped hard-boiled eggs in a creamy sauce, often seasoned with herbs and spices, served over toasted bread. This dish, known for its comforting qualities and simple preparation, became a favored breakfast and light meal option, aligning with American preferences for hearty, straightforward dishes. The versatility in seasoning allowed for a variety of flavors, making it a popular choice in both diners and home kitchens. The dish's rich, creamy texture combined with the ease of preparation made it a reliable choice for a satisfying meal, fitting well into the meal routines of many seeking both comfort and simplicity in their culinary choices.
Parlor room, a term more familiar to our grandparents' generation, was a standard feature in homes until the mid-20th century, particularly popular from the Victorian era through the early 1900s. This formal room was dedicated to entertaining guests, conducting social visits, and displaying the family's best furnishings and decor, such as fine china, ornata furniture, and grand pianos. It was often the show-casa room, reflecting a family's status and taste. In a time when social calls were a regular occurrence, especially among the middle and upper classes, the parlor room played a crucial role in household social life. It was a space of elegance and etiquette, distinct from the more casual living or family rooms, used for more formal receptions and important gatherings. However, as lifestyles became more casual and homes shifted towards more open, multi-purpose spaces, the traditional parlor room's significance waned. By the mid-20th century, this transition led to its replacement by living rooms that combined relaxation and entertainment, adaptable for various activities.
While we're on the topic of something sweet, we must mention pancakes with berries. In the 1970s, pancakes got themselves a bit of an upgrade. People were bored of plain old butter and syrup, so they got creative with them. Adding various fruits, like different types of berries, nuts, or whipped cream, pancakes became like a blank canvas of cooking. They weren't like a stack of carbs waiting to make you fat. They were statement pieces. People in the 70s realized that breakfast could be indulgent and healthy, though their definition of health might differ. Fresh fruits and nuts added to the sophistication of the dish, making each bite a little celebration. Little pancakes with fresh berries and nuts were the perfect blend of classic and traditional, alongside new and modern. Salt is really good at quickly cleaning your iron pans. This happens for a few reasons, but two of them are that salt just happens to be inherently very abrasive, and it's also very good at degreasing. This helps food that's stuck on the pan and any grease that also won't go away to come off easily. You don't want to be damaging the surface of your pan after all. Why is salt like that though? Salt happens to be really coarse, and that makes it really good for situations where you would need an abrasive. Sprinkle just a little bit on a hot pan with a bit of leftover oil and start scrubbing with a cloth. You'll see the difference almost immediately, and that's all thanks to the coarseness of salt. Why does salt work as a degreaser? Well, that's because when you use it alongside heat, salt changes its properties a little, as most things do when they come into contact with heat. Now, salt can help to absorb and break down greasy surfaces because it helps draw that grease away. Salt has a lot of good absorption properties too. It's really good at taking away moisture from other liquids and oils. It's also good for preventing some rust, but that's a little side tip I'm including for free. TV brand frozen breakfasts offered a comprehensive, ready-to-eat meal solution that included sausages, eggs, pancakes, and hash browns, simplifying the morning routine for many American families. Introduced in the 1970s, these breakfasts catered to the need for convenience and variety, allowing families to enjoy a hearty meal without extensive preparation. The marketing of these products highlighted their quick and easy preparation, appealing particularly to those with hectic morning schedules. The assortment within each package made these breakfasts highly appealing, as they catered to various preferences within a family, all from a single, easy-to-prepare kit. This product line was well received for providing a diverse and satisfying breakfast experience that could be enjoyed by everyone at the table.
Slide projectors, a staple in living rooms from the 1950s to the 1980s, transformed photography into a vivid social event. These devices projected slides onto a screen or wall, turning family photos into larger-than-life memories. Gathering to view slides of vacations, celebrations, and everyday moments was a communal and nostalgic ritual. The experience of setting up the projector, dimming the lights, and clicking through each slide was not only interactive but also deeply bonding, with family members often narrating stories behind each image. The advent of digital photography and screens offering instant access and sharing of images has nearly extinguished this once beloved practice. Today's fast-paced digital world has replaced the tactile, deliberate nature of slide viewing, shifting from a shared family experience to a more solitary, less tactile interaction with our memories.
Moving on to the second dish, croissants with jam. They weren't just a go-to breakfast in France in the 1970s, but also in the United States. Oh, just imagine starting your day with a freshly baked buttery croissant that is so light it could be blown away with just one windstroke. This was the morning choice of the elite, American and Parisian. I bet the French will have a bit of a problem with that statement, but oh well. It's their fault they make such darn good pastries. But why have scrambled eggs when you can have bites of heaven for breakfast every day? Back in the 70s, croissants weren't as widely spread in the United States as they are today. If you craved a croissant, you'd likely go to a high-end restaurant in a hotel or a cafe. The 70s were an era where French cuisine started making its way into the American lifestyle. Croissants and jam were a perfect blend of sophistication and simplicity. Whether the jam was apricot, strawberry, or raspberry, it could make the simple act of eating a croissant a religious experience. But nothing says, "I made it," quite like having international pastry that costs more than your lunch. Vinegar acidic. And that's not new information. Hell, Even a fifth grader these days can tell you that. At least I hope they can. Anyway, don't worry, because I'm here to tell you all about why its acidity is a factor we want to really be appreciating with this hack. See, that acidic nature helps to loosen and dissolve the burnt surface that you see on pans, the icky black stuff that sticks and just won't go away. Acetic acid is actually pretty weak, and vinegar doesn't exactly have the highest concentration of it, but its reaction with the minerals you'd find in burnt food and grease is what's interesting here. The acid actually helps break these down through an acid-base reaction and dissolution. Now those sound like fancy science words, but it basically means that this stuff is really good at helping the burnt food or grease detach from the surface of the pan. It's because vinegar is really good at cutting through stuff like that, which helps it dissolve greasy substances. I guess you can salvage that pan after all, right? Chipped beef on toast, affectionately known as SOS, is a dish rooted in military history, featuring dried beef in a creamy sauce over toast. Simple and cost-effective, it became a staple in U.S. military mess halls for its quick assembly and satisfying nature. This dish's straightforward preparation, combining a roux-based sauce with rehydrated beef slices, made it a popular choice in civilian kitchens, especially among families with military backgrounds. Variations included substituting dried beef with ground beef or sausage, and biscuits instead of toast, catering to different tastes. The dish was valued for its hearty quality and versatility, fitting well into the culinary routines of many American households due to its ease of preparation and comforting nature.
The Victrola phonograph, introduced in the early 1900s, was a marvel of its time. More than just a means to play tunes, these grand devices were a fusion of auditory and visual artistry, housed in elegant wooden cabinets with their iconic large horns. They played music on wax cylinders or discs, a stark contrast to today's digital formats. As a novel centerpiece of home entertainment, families would gather around the Victrola, winding it up to fill the room with the latest in classical, jazz, or popular music. This shared experience, almost ritualistic in nature, stood in sharp contrast to today's individualized listening habits with earbuds and streaming services. However, as technology evolved with the introduction of radios, tape players, and eventually digital music, the grandeur of the Victrola phonographs faded. It harks back to a time when music was not only heard, but physically felt, a communal experience now overshadowed by today's digital solitude.
Let's get baking. Challah bread. One of the essential elements of Judaism, perhaps the most universally known and beloved, is challah bread. It's a traditional Jewish braided bread that has been a staple of family gatherings and the centerpiece of the weekly Shabbat table and many holidays. We now know of challah as a sweet bread that is ripped apart before it even hits the surface of the table. But it wasn't always like that. Biblically, challah was the portion of bread given to the Kohen or priest. This weekly ritual was usually conducted by women who were the ones baking the bread, and it involved throwing a piece of dough into the fire. In medieval times, challah was a simple, plain loaf of bread. The braiding only started in the 15th century in Austria and southern Germany. Braids also symbolized the Sabbath bride's hair. The wealthier you were, the more strands you could have, a result of having more time, expertise, and domestic help. Challah was completely transformed in the United States. Everything got bigger and sweeter. Jews who came to America discovered a variety of new, cheap ingredients. In Europe, bread and sugar were quite expensive, so they had black bread all week, except on Shabbat, when they had white braided. But in America, you could have a white sweet loaf every day. Challah paired with berries, powdered sugar, or honey made it a true delicacy. It was served at high-end restaurants, and it was truly like fireworks exploded in your mouth. Cloth bags can actually help your cheese age just right, and I bet that sounds like a really weird mix to you, but it's as legitimate as a mix can be. The right conditions for aging all happen inside the wonderful confines of a cloth bag, so you have that for one. Basically, to age cheese and to age it properly, you need three different things. You need moisture that's regulated, and you need a lot of air circulation. None of that means anything if your environment isn't clean, so you need to be able to prevent contamination as well as you can. Moisture regulation is really important because as it keeps aging, then cheese starts losing moisture. Cloth bags, on the other hand, are made of really breathable material and help moisture to evaporate a bit more slowly so that the cheese doesn't get too dry. Cheese aging also helps keep air balanced since the cloth bag is really porous. All those tiny little openings help air to flow around the cheese, which you really need for the health of the rind. It helps for those helpful little bacteria and molds that you find on cheese to grow. Some of those microorganisms don't deserve to die in a heat death. They make your burger a lot better. Third of all, the bag itself just works as a natural barrier against any kind of dirty substance, insect, or material. All in all, you get a perfect vibe for your cheese. Heard about space food sticks? Launched in the early 70s, these snacks promised a taste of astronaut life right on your snack plate. Introduced in the early 1970s, they were marketed as a nutritious option that provided sustained energy with flavors like peanut butter and chocolate. The novelty of their space-age concept, combined with practical packaging that made them easy to consume on the go, initially drew considerable attention. The connection to NASA and the allure of consuming astronaut food added to their appeal, particularly among children and young adults intrigued by space travel. The innovative approach of space food sticks to combining nutrition with the excitement of space exploration helped them capture a unique niche in the snack market. King Vitamin cereal, launched by Quaker Oats in the early 1970s, targeted young consumers with its king-themed mascot and crown-shaped cereal pieces. Its packaging, often featuring puzzles and stories, directly appealed to children's love for adventure and discovery. Fortified with vitamins and minerals, the cereal was an attractive choice for parents seeking nutritious options for their children's breakfasts. The engaging marketing campaigns utilized animated commercials that brought the whimsical world of King Vitamin to life, enhancing its appeal. The cereal's sweet flavor and unique shapes helped it stand out in the competitive market of children's cereals, making it a popular choice during its peak years, especially appreciated for its fun and nutritional content.
Back in the days before Edison's bright idea took over, oil lamps and gasoliers were the mainstays of lighting up American living rooms. These weren't just your run-of-the-mill light sources, they were often ornate and stylish, setting the mood in the room just right. Imagine the cozy evenings. Folks would light these lamps and gasoliers, tweaking the flames to get that perfect warm glow. This ritual made things like reading, sewing, or just hanging out with the family feel extra special. But as the 20th century rolled in with its electric lights, these old-school illuminators started to fade out. Why? Well, electric lights were safer, more reliable, and changed the game in home lighting. Sure, you might still spot oil lamps or gasoliers in some homes today, but they're more about capturing that old-timey vibe than actually lighting up a room. As we dim the lights on
Scones with clotted cream. Now that's a breakfast that gives posh with every bite. You break it open and generously spread a thick layer of clotted cream, like a mix of butter and something even richer. Then comes the jam, sweet and fruity, to top off this morning's masterpiece. If you're feeling extra refined, you pair it with a steaming cup of tea because naturally this isn't just breakfast, it's an experience. Scones with clotted cream have long been favorites at fancy breakfasts in high-end restaurants, afternoon teas, or any occasion where you want to cosplay like British royalty for the day. Back in the 1970s, when the wealthy in America were obsessed with European delicacies, this dish became a go-to for brunches and gatherings. Light yet indulgent, it's the kind of breakfast that makes you feel a bit more civilized even if you're sneaking bites in your pajamas. Now this is something I could snack on. Cooking with canning jars is one of the most common things to do because they're built to do really well around high temperatures. People use it during sous vide, or to bake, or even when they're slow cooking. These jars are airtight, and their heat resistance really isn't a joke. You should look up how good tempered glass is when it comes to dealing with extreme heat, because it's literally the entire point of picking it out for the canning jars. The jars are usually heated to really high temperatures so that the food inside can be sterilized and preserved, and the glass actually expands and then contracts back to its original size and shape without breaking. This means you can place it on any source of heat, a stove, an oven, or even a pot of boiling hot water, and not worry about any glass exploding in your kitchen. If you cook with canning jars, then the context of slow cooking really is the best one to use them in. The airtight seal really helps to trap moisture in, which helps to boost the flavor of something by several levels. You also get some pretty even cooking since what you're cooking in doesn't have a lot of space, though that comes with some side effects like managing your portion or needing to cook a few more times than normal. Still, I bet you didn't know we could cook with canning jars, did you? Eggs in a nest, also known as eggs in a frame, brought a playful twist to traditional breakfast eggs by frying them inside a hole cut from a slice of bread. This simple yet delightful dish allowed for creativity and personalization during preparation, making breakfast an engaging meal. It was particularly popular for its ease of preparation and the joy it brought to the breakfast table, allowing for variations such as different bread types or added toppings like cheese or herbs. The interactive cooking process, cutting the bread and watching the egg cook perfectly in the middle, was a key appeal, making it a favorite among families. This dish stood out for its simplicity and the fun it added to cooking, making it a go-to choice for a quick and enjoyable breakfast.
Picture rails, a charming feature in early to mid-20th century homes, were more than just decorative elements. These molding strips, running along the walls near the ceiling, allowed homeowners to hang artwork and family photos without damaging the wall. This was particularly useful during times when wall materials were not as robust as today. In the days before digital photos and social media, displaying physical photographs and art in the living room was a way of sharing life stories and cherished memories. Picture rails were popular until the late 1960s, after which changing interior design trends and the advent of more durable wall materials led to their decline. In modern times, while some vintage homes still feature these rails, they are often more of a historical curiosity than a practical necessity.
Starting off with Eggs Benedict. This meal screams luxury and indulgence. If you wanted to show off your wealth in the 20th century, you didn't need to buy expensive bags or jewelry, but just order Eggs Benedict for breakfast. That'll show them just how rich you actually are. Just imagine those silky poached eggs draped in hollandaise sauce laying on top of an English muffin. And right there, laying next to them, are strips of crispy bacon. That right there is a dream breakfast. That's a dream breakfast. It sparks feelings beyond words. It's the perfect combination of elegance and tradition. You'll feel like you're dining at the Ritz, even though you're sitting in your local diner. Back in the day, Eggs Benedict divided people into two groups, the cereal crowd and the large breakfast lovers. But you don't devour Benedict's eggs, you savor them, enjoying every bite. Nothing says, "I am living the American dream," quite like eating eggs dripping gold, or at least golden butter sauce. To be brutally honest, it isn't easy to pull off Eggs Benedict. Poaching them is something I could never master. And the hollandaise sauce isn't a joke either. But for those rich enough to master it, or to pay someone else, Eggs Benedict was an everyday specialty and the ultimate breakfast. Rich in flavor and in life, plus a bit over the top. Just like the people who ate it. So, storing lettuce in damp cloths follows pretty much the exact same principles we went over while we were discussing how bread can help you get your sugar back. It's all about moisture retention, but this time around it's also got a lot to do with regulating the temperature of the lettuce. This really helps maintain the vegetable, because lettuce usually contains a lot of water, and that makes it easily perishable. Bummer, right? Especially when we use it in so many things, which always prompts you to buy in bulk. But that may not be the right idea, since you end up with wilted and dried lettuce, and no one wants that, right? Putting a damp cloth on it helps keep it humid, which means that the lettuce gets a perpetual source of moisture. This helps to keep the moisture in for long, and the cloth itself helps to absorb moisture coming in from the air and helps buffer the temperature too. You get a consistent humidity this way and some airflow since it is a cloth. All of this works really well by giving lettuce essentially the perfect environment it needs to last longer. Mapo Instant Maple Oatmeal set itself apart in the competitive oatmeal market with its unique maple flavor and the ease of instant preparation. Introduced in 1953, it became especially popular among families for its appealing taste and the memorable marketing character Marky Mapo, which resonated with children. The convenience of just adding hot water made Mapo a preferred choice for quick breakfasts, aligning well with the growing demand for efficient meal solutions. The distinctive maple flavor offered a sweet, comforting taste that stood out from more traditional oatmeal flavors, making Mapo a notable option in the breakfast category, favored for its taste and quick preparation. Let's forget about the eggs for a second and move on to fruit salad with yogurt. This breakfast screamed health and wellness. The rise of the health movement was at its peak at the time, and fresh fruit salads were in. Fruit salad with yogurt became the ultimate power breakfast, offering a good source of protein. This was the era of exotic fruits, so forget your plain old apples and bananas, and welcome to the papaya and kiwi show. In the 70s, fruit wasn't just food. It was a lifestyle. You not only ate fruits and yogurt, you lived and breathed them. If you put those colorful bowls of cherries, melons, and berries in front of yourself, you could basically call yourself a nutritionist. Add to that some yogurt, and you could say that you were having dessert for breakfast. The more exotic the fruit, the more it seemed like people at the time were living in some tropical country rather than the United States. Health and fitness fanatics all across America went crazy for this diet and embraced fruit salads like they were going to guarantee them eternal youth. Not all people were health-crazed, but some pretended to be. It was stylish and fun, so I guess not a lot has changed since the 70s. But whether you were actually health-conscious or a fake, a fruit salad with yogurt was going to keep you fresh and fed. Storing herbs in an ice cube tray works incredibly well because it really helps to keep them fresh, at least as fresh as they really can be. The herbs are very fragile, and if you've spent a lot of time seasoning your food, this isn't something I need to tell you. The essential oils in these are pretty much non-existent the moment they come into contact with air, and that only starts becoming more of a problem the longer that exposure lasts. They don't do well with lighter heat either, which is why an ice cube tray works for 3 reasons. 1, it helps preserve their freshness. Okay, tell me why, right? Well, ice cube trays put a little roadblock in a neat and slightly annoying process I affectionately call oxidation, and that really helps to keep spoilage issues low. That's all thanks to the cold temperature helping the enzymes stay away from the tissues of the herbs, and in turn, the oils that are with them. 2, there's only so much space in a tray, so you only take out the amount of herbs you need, which helps you keep spoilage to a low anyway. Third, you always place these trays in freezers, away from any kind of light or heat, which gives the herbs the perfect environment they need to rest and chill until you need to take them out. Post-fortified oat flakes were marketed as a health-oriented breakfast option, enriched with vitamins and minerals to appeal to health-conscious consumers. Introduced by Post cereals, they were promoted for their benefits like improved heart health and additional fiber, aligning with the increasing health trends of the mid-20th century. The oat flakes stood out for their nutritional value and were marketed through various campaigns emphasizing their health benefits. These flakes were known for their hearty texture, which provided a fulfilling start to the day, making them a favored choice for those looking to maintain a healthy diet. The focus on health and nutrition helped establish post-fortified oat flakes as a reliable breakfast option during their time on the market. For a more concrete breakfast meal, people often chose breakfast burritos. In the 70s and 80s, fine dining evolved in California, popularizing this dish across the country. Not everyone wants to make burritos themselves. It is kind of exhausting, especially if you don't know how to roll them properly. But if you're interested in trying, here is how. You need, well, tortillas, then 4 eggs and some cheese. The best option would be the Mexican blend, and salsa and avocados for serving. What you want to do is scramble the eggs and mix them with cheese, then fill the tortilla up with the cheese mix and serve with salsa and avocado. It sounds delicious, don't you think? I only have one little flaw I would like to point out. Where is the meat? You're telling me I am supposed to eat my salty breakfast without meat? Those rich people must have had all that money cloud their judgment because breakfast without meat? What even is that? If I had anything to say, I would add some chicken breast to the mix, but maybe that's just me. If I inspired you to go back to the good old days, make sure to give this video a like and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment down below sharing your favorite forgotten morning routine.